Welcome to eXp CultureCast, eXp Realty's official diversity, equity, and inclusion podcast. I'm your host, Cody Gilkeson, the visionary leader behind eXp's DEI strategy. I believe that we all have a story to tell, and that's where this show really shines. We are a vibrant tapestry of diverse backgrounds and experiences, and that's our superpower. In each episode, we'll sit down with thought leaders, industry experts, and change makers who are driving meaningful conversations and actions in the realms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. From personal stories of triumph to deep dives into systemic challenges, CultureCast is your compass in navigating the complex landscape of DEI. This is CultureCast, the bi-weekly podcast about what makes us us. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. It is Season 2, Episode 7 of eXp CultureCast. I'm your host, Cody Gilkeson. You guys know me. I've got here with me today Heather Brooks, co-founder and chair of eXp Seniors Network. We're so happy to have her. And we're talking about a really thrilling and interesting topic that a lot of us have to know about. It's called age tech, and Heather's going to get into that a little bit. I tell you, watching that intro video, we're watching me age through this podcast. So... We've been doing it a little over a year now, but it's I'm right on the cusp of 40 now, so I'm watching every fine line and wrinkle.
Yeah, but here's what I'm going to connect you later down how you're going to be connected to someone that is aging and how it affects you. It's amazing how those connections work. But thank you.
It really is. So anyway, we're pleased to have Heather here. So Heather, can you give us a little bit of your background, how you wound up at eXp?
Yeah. So a little quick snapshot. I am third generation Angelino, born and raised in Los Angeles. Recently, about 2 years ago, I moved to South Florida. My background growing up is, my dad was in the meat business. My mom was a teacher. Education, I was really important to me. Sales, my dad did. But the best part is they always talked about real estate because the one thing that they did was invest in, in a building. And they said, that's going to pay for your college. And so that was kind of how I grew up in real estate, always talked about. So when I graduated college and my sister had graduated college, we kind of took over our parents' real estate portfolio. Actually, it was one property, but we ended up later down the line kind of diversifying and getting really involved in real estate. My sister's involved in affordable housing. I got heavily involved in senior housing because my background is teaching. I taught in the public school system. And one of the biggest things is teaching and education. And when it came to little kids, you could teach them and you had people in place like a PTA helping them. And then you get to the seniors and we don't have people helping us age. We do know statistically that all of us want to age in place and stay in our home that we're in. It's familiar, it's home. We don't want to move. So none of my clients wanted to move. And therein lies what do you do? And you have to shift whatever business you're in, you have to be able to pivot and shift with the times. And when we're talking to this podcast, I'm going to show you why it's so important to be able to do that.
That's really cool. I love to hear that. And, we talk about you being a co-founder of eXp Seniors Network. Seniors Network has been around since before One EXP, right? You want to tell us a little bit about how that started and got traction?
So I came in maybe at the end of 2016, 2017, and we have Workplace through Meta. I love our Workplace because that allowed me to, when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, I was floundering. I knew I didn't want to be at a big brokerage, but I knew that I wanted something where I could connect, but not go in somewhere all the time, that it was virtual, because I wanted to connect with people in my neighborhood, not be having to get into meetings in a setting. When I found Seniors Network, because that's what it was called back then, there were a couple hundred agents, all focusing on, by the way, 55 plus demographics. There is a big misconception when people go, oh, it's eXp Seniors Network. They don't realize it's actually us working in the 55 plus market. And it's huge. It crosses over our commercial, it crosses over every business, in every capacity.
That's a big differentiator. A lot of people say to me, more than any other network, they say, oh, I guess this is the only one I fit in, or I'm not old enough, right? And it's not, what you said is exactly right. It's about serving the seniors market, right? And about learning more about and from seniors, right?
Yeah, well, and what I think that a lot of people also don't realize is with seniors, you need a people-to-people connection. And that has been lost through a lot of things, especially with technology and with everything, which we'll get to age tech shortly. It just is fascinating to see that now come back around. However, when I found this little small community, I felt like I found my culture. I found where I belong. I was being included in everything. And I knew that my educational background and my background in sales, and I love marketing. I geek out on the marketing aspect. And in all of workplace, we could get marketing from any one person. And I could say, oh, I could gear this towards the aging sector. Because I don't like the word senior, to be honest with you. It defines, yes, the older demographics. However, using the word aging is a much nicer word. However, we look at it as the 55 plus demographics in which we service. And that is something that kind of covers a broad range. It doesn't matter what business you're in or what you're doing, but you're going to be working at some point in capacity with somebody of the older demographics of 55 and older. So when I found it, I was like,
Yeah. And I should highlight, EXP, we take very seriously, and from the DEI team's perspective, we take very seriously our commitment to our seniors. People ask me a lot, like, why is it important for seniors to be represented? Because it's not like they are a persecuted minority like other minorities. To that, I would say you have a lot to learn.
Well, Cody, that's a great thing because they have ageism. And that is a huge thing in the workplace where your older demographics are getting booted because of the younger. However, there is a shift. There's a shift that's coming. And that is happening within America. It's already happened in Japan and China and in the Asian area, the European industry and the housing and in the businesses. Now, when you look at the United States, we're a much younger culture. They came across. So our nation is now aging. You look at Asia, the Asian population, they were having one child per two. Now they can have children because they don't have enough to take care of the older demographics. They're much farther ahead on accessibility. When it comes to it, inclusivity, when it comes to thinking of the older demographics, ageism. It's huge.
Yeah. Ageism is huge. And beyond ageism, there's elder abuse, which is not a buzzword. That's something that happens every day. I used to work in the banking sector, and boy, did we see that.
$38 billion business yearly. Yearly on scams and abuse for elderly.
It's crazy. I mean, and you look at studies. I just read something this morning that said in 10 years, it's much more likely for people to live upwards of 110, 115 years old and still be working into their 90s and beyond. We have to prepare for the fact that our bodies aren't going to work like they do when we're 20. Right?
I love that you just brought that up because here's some fascinating statistics that nobody's talking about. Nobody's looking at, nobody's thinking about, and nobody is pivoting their businesses towards the aging demographics. And why do I keep saying this? And if you've looked at any of my videos since 2017 in Seniors Network to date, I have been saying these statistics all along. So by 2032, those over the age of 65 will outnumber those under the age of 19 for the first time in U.S. history. So you have that one statistic. But the second statistic coupled with that is, in the last 10 years, we've doubled the amount of centenarians, those over 100. But guess what? By 2050, we're going to quadruple the amount of centenarians. So that you, myself, and most of the people that are watching CultureCast, they're going to live into their hundreds. They
Right.
will.
Right.
They really will. Now, let's go a little bit further into that. Is that so now you got to look at, like, let's just our nation's housing infrastructure. It's aging just like we are.
Mm-hmm.
So different. Average age is 45. But here's the cool thing that's happening is livability. We are all being ranked on what we're calling livability. So AARP has an index. World Health Organization has an index. We are all of our communities, all of our neighborhoods are being ranked on what we call livability. And that is access to stuff, things. There's a whole thing, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But it is, what people don't realize is if you go into Zillow or anything on the internet and you look at your home's worth, you'll see what the rankings are. Walkability, transportation, all that. That is so older adults or even young children needing to get to places without having to be a responsible adult can get there easily. It's easily accessible, easy to get to, safe. Mm-hmm. There's community support, there's a lot that goes into it, but it's interesting because that's going to be a huge thing to look at in our own neighborhoods. How are you pivoting to work with the aging demographics? How are you, rather than your hand out, like, give me business, how are you going to put your hand up and say, how can I help you as somebody that's aging? So when they're 100 years old, they don't have to work.
That's exactly it. I mean, and for me, it's something that this is something that we can sell the idea of to even the most selfish person, because it is genuinely about you. We're talking about the future. We're talking about your future. We're talking about the fact that you are going to be spending significantly more of your life as an older person than ever before in history, right?
So how about, let me give this you person a name. And remember how I told you at the beginning of this podcast, 12 minutes ago when we started, I said to you, I'm going to connect you with the older demographics and you're not even going to know it. Here is the you. You are a sandwich generation. Why do I call you sandwich generation? I am a sandwich generation. Just because we're living longer means, yes, we're going to need help, but guess what? Who's helping them? Their children, us, sandwich generation, and we're being affected by that, but we're also raising our own children. Or maybe most of us grandchildren, and taking care of our parents. So that is huge. Multi-generational living is going to make a comeback because that cohesiveness and taking care of family and the generational taking care of each other, we're going to need it. Between healthcare and transportation and all of the other things that are coming, we're going to need it. But I'll tell you, age tech. That's my favorite word, by the way. I'm like a geek over futuristic stuff that helps us live longer and helps us be able to be more independent and not have to rely on our children or our grandchildren or others to help us live. So
that's great. So let's dig in. Can you explain what that is? What is age tech? Why it's becoming increasingly important for our aging population?
Okay, so as I told you the statistics before with the aging demographics, before I get into age tech, here's why it's so vital. When you look at the aging demographics, we are, yes, aging, however, and we're aging longer, which is great. However, 1 in 4 currently, right now, 1 in 4 over the age of 65 takes a slip and a fall. And 50% of that happens in their home. So you've got that. But then you also have homes that aren't able to help you live there safely. Less than 10% of our nation's housing units can actually accommodate somebody with a mobility issue. So that means if you're somebody that's in a walker or a wheelchair, talk about it, being inclusive and being able to design stuff like that. So that's livability again on the index, that openness to be able to maneuver around things much better. So age tech's playing a part in this. Why do I say it? Because as we're aging, we are going to need things within our homes and medically to help us age safely. So age tech, and the definition behind age tech is it's technology being driven by the aging sector for the aging sector. And the aging sector is actually involved in the design and process of it all. So ageism is no longer an issue when you're talking about age tech. It kind of like, puts all of that aside and says, we need to come to grips with this, and this is what we need to figure out. So
I love that. I love the idea that it's being done sort of, that's the idea of equity, right? It's equitably being handled by sort of the for us, by us mentality, which is beautiful. And I'm happy to be somebody that knows a bit about this, because my father is a quadriplegic. He has been since 1994. So while he was living in the hospital, a community came together and built him a handicap accessible home, bathroom, floors, countertops, all of it. Right. So I know this a little bit. It's a little different for someone who's aging compared to just a general.
It's not, believe it or not, and that's what people don't realize. It is no different. It is, and another thing is, how being, yes, a quadriplegic, but somebody still needs to have access to get in and out of things. No different than an older adult in a walker or wheelchair, or a child that's that's in a stroller going through, or that can't typically walk, that they're crawling, or that they're like doing that, old drunk man type walk,
Right.
I just see that because, again, people think it's the way of their thinking is, it doesn't just stop being a quadriplegic. It is everything. It is using a walker, using a wheelchair, having eyesight, hearing, being able to do things for yourself and live freely is possible. Like for your father, the community came together. That's what we're going to have to do for our older adults. It is. Yeah. It is. And I like that they did that, because we got to get back to those times. I feel like our communities are kind of like sporadic and not, kind of.
Yeah. A little all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you talk about age tech, because we were talking about it, I'm going to just say what it encompasses. Because first of all, if you look up Age Tech Atlanta, that's really your home base and where it started. And just some fascinating stuff that's coming out there. But then they collaborated with AARP. So you've got a collaboration with everybody going on, and it's great. Basically, it covers markets that are with communication and engagement. These are technologies that are going to keep seniors connected with family and friends. So you're going to think of like virtual reality, voice assist, or things that are going to be hearables. My dad's got hearing aids, and he's able to just from his phone, like take down noises and put down noises if he's in really loud places. That is age tech. Another part of VR. So there is this great thing called Thrive Pavilion. And what it is it's a virtual world in which we are going to have for Seniors Month, the man who invented and who's the owner of Thrive Pavilion. It's a virtual world similar to what we have in EXP. And it's for older adults. It's a senior platform. It's free, but they're in a virtual world where they can connect with each other, because loneliness is a huge issue with seniors. And again, free platform, but you'd have to have the VR goggles. And so those are the types of things that we've got these things, but we also need these things. So again, age tech, you've got safety and security, which is your second kind of we look at as like an area. And that's going to be like fall detection. Wall monitors are going to be plastered on the wall that's going to be able to, like a sonic, like a sonar, it's not sonar, where it can tell how long someone's been down on the floor. And if they've been laying there, you can speak to them rather than wearing the devices of help, I can't get up, when you've fallen. Or trying to remember to push a button when you've fallen, because what happens if you've hit your head? This will be able to tell you without you, if you've conked your head and you're out and you've been laying on that floor for longer than a minute, you can time it. So it's amazing how that goes. You've got other things that are sensors and monitors for appliances like Ohm. Ohm is this amazing universal design knob that goes on any stove, and you just plop it in the stove, and it can turn on and off the stove. And if you've left your stove on, and by the way, it's not for just older adults. Think of a busy mom sitting at home that's got kids in every room, or a busy dad cooking, and it gets left on. And it beeps or it tells you, and it will automatically turn off the stove, gas or electric.
Mm.
So
that's pretty brilliant. I mean, that also works for someone who is ADHD and might forget that it exists, right?
Yeah. So then you've got health and wellness. You've got fitness trackers. People think like our smartwatches were designed for things, and they're like, oh, how cool. But actually, most of those apps are age tech. So they're monitoring things like our heart and things like that. So that's fascinating. You also have that learning and contribution. I did mention Thrive Pavilion. People with this VR, they can go into rooms and do an educational series with each other about a topic that they love to talk about. This is helping older adults not just engage with people that are like-minded, but when people can't get out of the home and it's not easily accessible with transportation to get places, this is a great option for them to actually engage with other people without having to find those resources to get out of the home. So
and the value in that of keeping your mind sharp too, right?
Oh my God.
There's nothing that keeps my mind sharper than teaching people, right?
I agree. You know what the best part is? We're going to have a live demonstration. So we're going to see all the people, and we're going to go into those rooms and see what they're doing in those rooms. In August. So I'm very excited.
That you mentioned, I completely buried the lead. I meant to mention earlier, our commitment to seniors is we look at the calendar of occurrences and different heritage months and that kind of thing. And we noticed that seniors get a day, right? Seniors Day. And we were like, no. At EXP, we're doing Seniors Month, right?
So the last 5 years, I think, could be 4, maybe this is the 5th, we have done Seniors Month.
Yeah.
We have celebrated a senior. First, we did Seniors Week, and we looked at each other and said, yeah, that's not going to work out.
Yeah, we're packing too much into a week. Yeah.
But yes, every month, every August, I put on a jam-packed month, and I bring in people from national organizations. And every year, it's something different. It's never it's not really the same people. But I bring in people from national organizations or that are doing stuff in our community that are involved, that I want people to know and to understand, that are in their communities, that they can also either get involved in or be able to help their clients, know more about. So I think that's important.
Another thing I want to mention is anybody at EXP knows that this year we've gone in big on creating experiences in frame with the Black History Museum and the Women's History Library and all those things. This August, right now, you can go in and check out the interactive senior home. We just had the banner go up across the bottom, but it's at exp.world/interactive-senior-home. And this is our way of talking about exactly what we're talking about right now, how to make your home livable for someone who's aging and for yourself.
The best part is, and it's it's interactive, but the best part is it's actually taking you to places where you can get resources. I urge you, borrow. You don't have to borrow those resources from what we put up in there to give to your clients. I wholeheartedly believe in EXP Seniors Network, and not just in the EXP Seniors Network because I'm involved in the National Aging Place Council, but I believe that it is so important to educate and empower us with how to connect people to people again and really get back to our roots of helping, because our older demographics is going to need it, and we are too. And I say that only because we are also dealing with our parents. Remember, we're sandwich generation. So we don't know where to get the information, what to do, where, the who, what, where, when, hows, and whys of aging safely.
Yeah. I want to pause for a second. I just want to stop because people who watch this show, they know I love to get somebody that's passionate on the show about a topic. Rarely is someone as passionate about a topic as you are about aging, right? So I just want to know, can we give a little bit of backstory here about what it is that makes you so passionate about this that you want to be a leading voice in this?
Oh, I love that question. I love that. I told you when we started, two things I love. It was young children and older adults. And so when I was teaching to subsidize my teaching, I was a real estate agent. And I only liked working with older adults, but they don't want to leave. I soon realized that they needed the tools and the educational components to help them live in their house safely, because the moment that they didn't, I was there to help them move. And I started coining it. Oh, it's the modify and move effect. Oh, this is modify or move. And we're getting there. Trust me, we're on the trajectory because of those statistics I was telling you about. And I kept telling people, and they're like looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, you guys don't understand. This is like great.
Right.
I then realized, I really want to truly understand what it means, livability. Okay. Because there's pillars of livability. And that's a very important aspect to this, because in order for us to age safely, we have to know, like, if you take the keys away from your parents, how are you going to get them to a doctor's appointment? Where are you going to find transportation? You know what I'm saying? There were things that we didn't think about. So I started seeing that livability thing. There is the National Aging in Place Council, and it's out of Washington, D.C. It's a nonprofit. And I started getting involved years ago in it. And I saw this need in the housing portion where we still are going for a tax incentive for homeowners to have $5,000 tax credit just to age in place safely. That means a modification, a grab bar, a ramp getting into a house. If you remember, less than 10% of our nation's housing units can actually accommodate. So if we could just take $5,000, and then we thought, it'd be great if we could, you look at electric saving, like, your appliances, they have the yellow tags, it's energy efficient. We were going to do a purple tag. So that you wanted an aging product and it's a tax incentive, you could buy that purple product and get the tax credit off it. If you were using a contractor that was stamped with the National Association of Home Builders, because that's who we are certified with, that's important. That led me down a whole entire rabbit hole. And then I've been speaking at the International Builders Show on our nation's housing infrastructure and aging homeowners, how to market to them what they need, how you need to fix it, how you need to be connecting with them. Because if you aren't, again, shifting whatever business you're in, you're going to get left behind.
Yeah.
This is a huge demographics. Again, trajectory up. No one's listening to it, though.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So what about, all right, talking back about age tech, let's talk about the new stuff here. I know you're all over this stuff, and there's a lot that some of us may be aware of and we don't realize it's age tech, but I want to talk about what's next. What do you think is the most exciting innovations, or a place where there's a real opportunity for growth in age tech?
Okay, Consumer Electronics Show, International Builder Show is all showing it. And that's where I go, I love those shows.
CES is so interesting to me. If anybody that wants to know what's going to happen next with society, you need to watch CES, yeah.
There's a whole stage just for age tech, by the way. So there's a lot of key innovations coming in. You have everything from smart mirrors that's, I'm just going to talk in home for a second, just for a quick second. So when you look in a home, you're looking at like smart mirrors. You can be able to look in a mirror and it can tell you, are you dehydrated? Is something going on with you? Like, are your pupils dilated? Right? Oh. But here's a fascinating one. We all know the brand Toto, the toilet. So it has not come to market yet, but it's been working on. They've been working on the last couple of years. it is it's a smart toilet. It breaks down your waste. It can actually tell you when you have issues with stuff going on, lacking vitamins, lacking fiber, other problems, dehydration. So again, we're talking about for the aging sector of being able to monitor our health before something happens. The biggest thing I think that we're losing sight of is doing stuff now, not waiting until after. If you are aging in place, you want to think about modifications or aging in place either now in this home or a different home, but safely. What does that look like? And you need to make sure that that's going to work for you, because you said, and like I told you, demographics over 100, you're aging. You need to think about the second half of life. We're living longer than our past generations. Most of us did not grow up with great-great-grandparents, but we are going to be now.
Right.
So that, I think it's just looking at the statistics, dumbing it down, and like telling a story to people. This is how I feel I am when I look at, like, when people are like, well, how do you see yourself? So I'm the co-chair. Sorry, I'm the founding chair for the Southeast Florida National Aging in Place Council chapter, and I do a lot of people-to-people connections with businesses. And when I talk to business, I say, it's great that you're sitting here, and I love that you guys are all sitting here, but nobody knows you're out there. Like, how are you connecting with the community other than, I want your business, I want your business, I want your business here and here. And that's the key, the part that we're missing. So when I started with the National Aging in Place Council, I started this chapter, and now I'm going into a position within our national organization as their head of marketing and people that are coming in as our new members, and education. I feel like we're PTA people. We had listen, if you look at our pillars of aging, housing is our first pillar, because without housing, we have nothing.
Right.
Housing, transportation, health and wellness, and then it goes down, community engagement, all of that. And that is huge. Finances, huge. However, housing, your key component, there's no education out there. There's nobody helping. And every time any of us went to go buy a house, we went to the person that knew everybody. You knew your doctors, you knew the PTA people, or whatever reason you were buying there, or the people that worked with your company that were surrounded by. We bought it with an intention of knowing what we were living there with. But second half, now that we've grown out of that house, the kids don't want our stuff. Mm-hmm. That's a collection, we're a museum keeper at that point.
Right.
We're just keeping mementos and housing it. And it's not safe. We know less than 10%. So now you look at that component, and so now you really got to think forward facing. And so I think all in all, you have to have everything connect as a PTA. And the only way to do that is like through people like us talking and have these conversations and saying, hey, there's this organization, go get involved.
Yeah.
Get involved with your aging community, make a difference. Use whatever your expertise is and make a difference in your community.
Yeah. And I mean, I think something that strikes me about our seniors network, in particularly the way that you lead our seniors network, is I consider in housing the senior demographic to be one of the most easy to prey upon, right? It would be so easy to do that because realtors have all the knowledge and older people might not know what they're getting into with a home, and so they get taken advantage of. And what you're teaching people is not just how to market to seniors and how to get seniors to buy houses from you. It is how to do it in a way that makes them a lasting client and a valuable, like you're adding major value to the lives of the people who buy homes from you, which is such a different, it's the polar opposite of elder abuse, right?
Cody, here's what I say, and I kind of laugh. I always tell people, the more hands you shake, the more money you make. And I say that because you are making connections. This is people, get back to people. We have lost sight of the people to people business. This is not a business to business, business to consumer. This is not, none of that B2B. There are no acronyms to this.
Right.
It is people to people. We are all human beings. We all need trust. We all need that. But more importantly, the education and the resources. Again, PTA, you knew you were being educated on how to raise a child, how to keep a child going in a community. You had community support. You had your PTA and your peeps around you. You had people to connect to. All of a sudden, your kids go off to have their own children. You are now in your neighborhood. Everything's changing in your neighborhood. Gentrification, all of that. It's just the way of life. It happens, whether it be storms, weather, something's going on within our neighborhoods that's changing the landscape of it in some way. And when you change that landscape, you need to kind of maneuver. We all know as we age, we don't like change.
Right.
And especially when change is coming in the name of technology, they don't know how to use technology the way, forgive me, but the way that maybe I would. However, the way that my kids would, because I know my parents at 85 and 79 are asking me questions and I'm like, I don't know. You got to call my kid. And my kids are in their 20s. So there is this big gap when you look at that kind of stuff, but we're all sandwiched in it. And when you throw in technology and then you tell people you got to sign paperwork online, whether it be any type of a contract.
Right.
Doesn't matter.
And with technology, part of it isn't even an age thing. Part of it is a urban versus rural thing. My mom got a computer in her home for the first time last year. A computer.
Yeah. Well, and by the way, if you look at the urban, rural, city, all of that, and then you look at that livability, it's not easy, because when you take a slip and getting just kind of encompassing of it, if you take that slip or fall and be that 1 in 4, you're in that home and nobody knows that you slip or fell. And if they did and the emergency thing went off, you're in a golden hour. You just got to get emergency service to and from somewhere within an hour in hopes that you're going to still be alive.
Right.
And that someone's going to find you. So that, even if it's outside somewhere on your property. So it's hard. Hard because you want to keep everybody where they are and you want them to be happy and to age safely, but you got to take precautions beforehand.
You do. Yeah. And there's a little bit of having to convince someone, but I think it's part of it's part of you got to understand what the benefits are to your life and your health span, right? Because I come from a family of people who, gun to their head, would never put a smart thermostat in their home, right? So to tell them, what about doing this smart toilet that's going to analyze your waste?
I think with the more education you have, the better off you are. And it's not coming from us, their own children, because they won't listen to us.
No, right.
They won't. But ending this whole thing, I have a TV show coming out on exactly the pillars of aging through the National Aging in Place Council. So
got it.
We're working on that. Yeah, coming out here in South Florida. So
Awesome.
Yeah. So
that's so cool. We always tell people when they're on my podcast, this is what I've identified as your superpower. I tell that to people all the time. You're one of those people who, quite frankly, people read the comics and it's unfair. People think it's unfair when people have more than one superpower. You're like the Superman, right? You're the Superwoman, because you do marketing, you do education, you've got all the fashion.
I look at it like I'm just a PTA president.
Yeah.
I am not anything but, I am a fearless leader that has a mission, and I feel like I'm this PTA president through our National Aging in Place Council, because I wanted to be a 501c3 nonprofit foundation that's nationwide.
Yeah.
Everything that I bring into any one of our EXP events, they have to have nationwide. I want everybody to have the same resources that I do.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. If I'm getting
And that's we always have seen that from you. Anybody that's interacted with you has seen that. That's you are one person who I think can pack more information of value into a.
I can't.
I gave you a 20-second window on the agenda, and you
Maybe it works.
somehow I learned something already. So the thought of you having a TV show, people are going to benefit from that. I can't.
Yeah, it's great. It's going to interweave stories of things that I was talking about, like that slip and fall that happens out. And then how do you get out there to, the types of services that you or anybody, one of us can find for those nationwide resources. And then to a panel that's being led by my co-host and business partner, Dr. Israel Cross. So he's a gerontologist, a fascinating guy. I'm actually, if we do not get my friend Laura out of ARP Livability, then I'm going to have Dr. Israel Cross come in. So he's a fascinating guy. He's got a great background. And he is working on the gerontology paper for the U.S. government. So, yeah, the only gerontologist on the board.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's cool. What do you see as some of the main barriers to the adoption of age tech, and how do we overcome those?
I'll tell you what it is. I get it all the time. This is a question, not a question. It's a statement that people make. It's going to take over the world. It's going to take over everything. That's the feeling and the exclamation that I get. And the hesitation. Here's what I can assure you. We were born into this world to have a human connection. And we cannot live without that human connection. We know for a fact that we need that touch, we need that bond, we need that interaction with a human being. So with that being said, age tech isn't going to take over. AI isn't going to take over. And all these things aren't going to take over. They're going to screw things up at times. They're going to make things better at times, but it's just like anything in life. You're just going to have ups and downs. I kind of like to think of it like you got to have many options out there. And if you only have one, you're kind of screwed. So I prefer for people to know that there's dozens of options out there before you get down a rabbit hole.
Right. Yeah. And with any movement, you have to believe in the intent. And even if there's a rough day of something happens, a technology breach or something like that, it's the intent has always been to make us safer in our homes. Right? Make us safer in our homes, to make us healthier, to make us more connected to our community.
You got to think there's always, again, I'm going to go back to that PTA thing, okay? And this is why I say that, because there's always going to be that bully. There's always going to be that one person that's going to try to ruin it. A hacker, a bully on the playground, the guy who's going to beat up the kid because he wants the snack money. No different in this.
A crappy cybersecurity firm that makes all of Windows go down for a whole day all over the country.
But again, shame on the big companies that are going to say, you're the only person that gets this contract. What are you thinking? That's dumb. Like, why are you putting all your eggs in one basket? That sucks because we as a consumer...
Diversify is the name of the game.
Diversity, baby.
Yeah.
Again, yes, you're right. But getting back to that whole internet, I don't blame the older demographics for feeling the way that they feel, because when you look at the amount of senior scams, it's a $32 billion business, and then tap on a couple more billion for other, like for elder abuse part. It's hard. It wipes them clean. And then where do you go? You don't have family. You have a lot of solo agers. There's a lot of fascinating variations of housing that's going to come up, like Golden Girl style houses and college dorm style housing. Like malls being retrofitted into, senior living communities.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's my mall in my small town right now. Is they're thinking that's what they're thinking of doing with it.
you should look at the one they did in New York. I'll send you the information. It's fascinating. And like I said, it crosses over so many markets, and it's not just a housing market. We're talking a commercial market. We're talking about a technology market that they've named for the aging sector.
So, what advice do you have for families and caregivers who are looking to incorporate age tech into their loved one's home?
If you love your loved one, start thinking about how or the ways that you can help them age safely in that home. So whatever technology that means, and that they're comfortable with, and having that constant conversation, or having them go to classes to see what it's all about. AARP actually has labs that they have, these tech labs, which are great. The other thing that I've been doing is I'm on the AARP Speakers Bureau. So I've been doing classes on stuff like this. Yes, there's a disconnect and it's afraid, but then you also have to remember when one update goes on, or one thing goes down, they can't use it. And that is I'm frustrated when it happens. And as we all know, there's lots of updates that happen. And then all of a sudden a button isn't where it should have been. It's on there, it's just not where it should have been. So if it's simplified, age tech, it's the best thing. Healthcare, invest in age tech. Look at the players of the game of age tech. Look at the companies that are up and coming. You've got a lot of people that are in this game that you have no idea that are big players. And you're like, holy cow, didn't know they have that. And they've got stuff coming in the next 5 to 10 years. They've been working on this for a very long time.
Wow. What about, do you have any like real world stories of how having proper age tech in a home has positively impacted someone?
So there's a few stories where that is. One of the biggest things, I started incorporating aging in place and universal design in homes because people would say they fell out of bed. That and in the bathroom are your two major issues. Well, age tech is not just about the technology, but about the concept of how you can make things easier for them to age. So much so that lighting is a big thing. And by the way, over 50, we need a ton more light than we needed at 20. It's not just a 70, 80, it's an over 50 thing. So just knock that ageism out of the park right there. So that's a huge component to falls and issues. iPads, it's really, you can just voice control. Hey, Alexa, lights on. Hey, Alexa, dim lights. Hey, Alexa, lights off. You can even so much so that the moment that you step out of your bed, there's lighting that comes underneath your bed that automatically go on. So as you're stepping to the bathroom, lights are going on. It's not waking up a whole room. You're still able to see within not fully waking up, but you're able to walk safely. Yes. You also, and we call it, you also have toe kick lighting. So that's what lights up the floor, but task lighting, that's another thing. Yeah. Again, we need more light. So you look at features like that. You look at other things that, like the stove knob. Imagine a parent having cognitive issues. You're a child that lives across the country, and then all of a sudden, did my mother even cook something, or did she leave the stove on? You can check that knob. You can see what's going on with your parents. So,
yeah. I mean, it brings me back. It makes me think my great grandmother, Jimmy Lou Burnett, who was one of my favorite people who's ever walked the surface of this planet. When she began to get dementia, she had a hallucinatory nightmare once and scared herself out of her bed, fell out of her bed, broke her hip. She had a life alert. My Aunt Kathy was able to get over it and help her. But that was the moment when the family decided that she couldn't live on her own in her home anymore. And we put her into assisted living. And I think about how different life would be for her now if we had what we have now and if we knew what we know now.
Yeah, that's why when you were asking about the age tech and I'm talking about that toe kick lighting, it's saving people or it's allowing us to realize, crap, there's something going on before that happens. One of the hugest components to what I said earlier is doing this age tech before a fall happens. If you integrate that lighting, the chances of you being 1 in 4 on that fall is much different. So seeing enough of my clients fall and knowing that that's a big issue, I'm like, oh, we're doing lighting under there. You may not think so, but let me tell you, we're going to do it.
I think back to proactively, if she wouldn't have had a bed that was massively too tall for her little body, and if she would have had a grab bar for when she gets out of the bed, if she would have had appropriate lighting, if we would have had a timer on the television to turn it off so it wasn't scaring her in her sleep.
But guess
all of these things, right?
We didn't know any of it. And now we're learning after the fact of things. And I hate that. I want to see people learn before something happens. That modifier move. I want to see you modify home because that's your first pillar before you have to move. Because I can guarantee you're going to have to move. If you don't have finances, transportation, health and wellness, community support, engagement, if you don't have all that, you're in trouble. You know, home's the pillar. That's where our heart is. That's where our memories are. That's where we all want to be. All of us. So,
and I'll tell you, this is we're getting towards the end of this, but just to touch it home and why this is so important and why I'm paying such close attention and why I really want to know more about this. I'm someone who I'm adopted, right? And I came to know my biological family, and on my mother's side, it's early onset dementia, right? It's my mother got it at 50. My grandmother had it at 45. My great grandmother had it at 50.
There's a program. Are you in the program?
No.
I'm going to give you information. There's a program you can get into. There is an actual, so these are the resources I'm talking about. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. There is a program you can get in that they can actually not only touch you, it's free. It's through the Alzheimer's Association. You have a background, they want you, and they will start you on medication so you can live longer. If they know that you statistically have genetic makeup and a marker, they have something that can block it. You've got to get into this program.
Yeah, you got to tell me about this. I mean, I share this because it's something that is constantly on my mind. I'm about to be 39 years old. In my mind, I've got 11 years of cognitive thinking left in my life.
No, right? Get into this program. The sooner you start, the PTA business, baby. I'm telling you, PTA, this is the connections that's so important. And when you're working with,
here's a life lesson from CultureCast. It's about knowing the right people.
The people to people connections again. But there is a study. I'm going to go ahead and email that study to you. That's through the Alzheimer's Association. I've brought in our director from South Florida to speak on this, and he's talked many times over, but there's a genetic marker. And I so appreciate it because you never know by me hearing that story and going, oh my God, I've got something for you to check into. You've got to look into it. Is exciting because it could have just saved the next, how many years are you worrying for? 15, 18 or something?
11 or so.
Yeah. So you can maybe take a breather and them like check something off and go, okay, well, you do have this marker, but guess what? We have this. They have that now. I'll send it to you.
I love that. Thank you.
So,
all right. We end every episode with the same question. If someone were brand new, freshly jellied member of the EXP family today, they started at EXP, what advice would you give them?
Find your culture, your place to be.
There it is.
I found mine. Found mine with Seniors Network. And I urge people to find theirs and really like dive into it and get involved. But it's not just here. It's got to also transfer into the community too. It carries over. It's got to really come from within. You can't just fake it to make it.
That's it. That's one of the beautiful dichotomies at EXP is this can take your career from being a local community thing to being something where you're connected to a global community.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take away that as a real estate agent, you're important to your community and you should find what's important in your community and be plugged in. Yeah.
It's not just real estate, business. Any person
business person, yeah.
In the sales business, doesn't matter what you do. It's about that connection, and getting back to those roots of connecting to the community and marketing yourself through that connection.
Beautiful.
Thank you for having me. I love it.
Thank you so much for being here. Everybody, a programming note at the top of the episode, I said this was season 2, episode 7. It's not. It's season 2, episode 9. But either way, here we are. We are in the middle of Seniors Month. Stay tuned to Seniors Network for more about their great events that are going to be coming up. We're going to have them all on the DEI at EXP YouTube channel. And don't forget to check out that Senior Interactive Home at exp.world/EXP. What is it? Senior-Interactive-Home is where it is. We're going to post about it on the 1EXP Facebook and on the Seniors Network workplace. So come check us out. And until next time, thanks for being around. Thank you for joining us on this episode of CultureCast. If you have time, please be sure to scan the QR code on screen now and leave us a review on Glassdoor. See you next time.